Good afternoon, everybody. Good morning if you're in the States and all over the other side of the world. Welcome. We're celebrating 3 years of AWO. Let's congratulate ourselves. It's been a journey. And it's a pleasure to be here at the Ghana Center for Democratic Development. Ghana Center for Democratic Development have been a really supportive partner for the last 2 years. And particularly last year when we did our mini festival, Bloomfest, and they stepped in to sponsor. And also our colleague and member, B-Boy Lyrics, who you'll meet soon. Was it for the national or the international? For the international Afro Break Championships last year, Democratic Development and Wadimos stepped in to support. So the support continues, the collaboration continues, and today we continue the collaboration by exploring a new project or a new aspect of one of their projects, which is really about one of the things that is close to the arts. And today we're going to explore the concept of democratives, okay? The concept of democratives. So we're going to speak a bit more about that. I'm going to introduce our esteemed panel, who is going to join us for the roundtable today. And then I'm going to give you the definition, or one of us will give you the definition of democratives to help us open up the conversation. And so that person will become very apparent as we pass the mic. All right, I'm going to pass it to my left. So I'm Kweku Aacht, founder of AWO, artist, activist, teacher, and wellness enthusiast. I'm going to pass to my right.
Good afternoon.
Sure.
Do I need to? All right, so I'm Tammy. I'm an entrepreneur, that's what I'd say, but I also love arts. I dabble into music and stuff like that. I think I've been directly impacted through AWO, Kweku, in terms of wellness, health, well-being, mindsets. It's really helped me. It's been a journey, and I've actually used these as tools, especially during very stressful environments where I find myself. Yeah, that's what I can say. Okay.
Right. So I'm Jonah, and I'm with CDD-Ghana.
Hello, my name is Nana Tufuokai. A lot of people know me as B-Boy Lyrics. I'm the founder of African Breaking Academy. I could say a creative collective organization that uses hip-hop as a tool to impact communities.
Hello, my name is Habi, and I'm a film director. I'm also part of AWO.
I'm a pharaoh, means African hero. I am a musician and also an instrument maker and instruments inventor as well. Yeah.
Hi. Take, short for Sunita Cragby. I'm a creative director. I'm an entrepreneur as well, a female entrepreneur. And I revolve in 360 creativity, ranging from branding to design and also to creating creative ecosystems in which people can thrive, people can work, but people can. My organization is called Basecamp Initiative, and we are partners of AWO.
Hello, I'm Amadou. I work with CDD-Ghana, and then this is my second time of attending a WOHAP activity. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
My name is Ajiman. I help make people and things better using creative skills. Kweku is my cousin, and I've seen the different things he's done over the years. And it's wonderful to see him start such a wonderful organization, AWO, and I'm really honored to be here, to be part of the 3rd anniversary for AWO. knowing that the future is even going to be brighter than the past has been?
My name is Irab Najaman. I am a lover and fierce believer in Africa or of Africa. I am co-founder of Where Ghana, and it's been a joy seeing AWO evolve into so many useful things, and Where Ghana has directly benefited from the skills and the experiences and the spirit that Kweku brings to the work that he does. So very excited to be here.
Thank you. I'm also part of the AWO family, and I try as much as possible when I can to participate in very important activities such as this. I look forward to a great for more years for the growth and networking within AWO's family, and that all of us will become champions of our fields so that we can brighten our corners so that we'll be brighter.
Thank you so much. We are blessed with the gifts of the experience, the knowledge, and the passion in this room. It's, for me, apt that this group of people meets today. This morning's group, we met this morning for a workshop where we explored the themes, but using interactive games, tools, exercise, which is really one of the roots or the foundations of AWO and our learning processes, to explore the relationship between what could be possible actually when we connect the civic society, our activists and artists with the intention of impacting and increasing and empowering the voice of the people. And so in the afternoon conversation, we're taking that spirit into an exploration of what required to enable and empower a democrative. And just to open up the floor, I would love to hear and invite our brother Jonah, who is one of the key members or key cornerstones of the Wademos network. And it was the Wademos network that came up with this title, Democrative, and inspired us to consider and more impact on society. So, Jonah, I wonder if you could give us a bit of background on Wademos and also on this concept we're calling democratives.
Okay, thank you very much. It's a long story.
Yeah, you'll give us the succinct version.
So I'll try to make it very short. So you are here at CDD. So the story starts with CDD.
Tell us a brief bit about CDD. What does CDD do?
Well, I presume we all know about CDD, but CDD is a civil society organization promoting democracy and good governance, inclusion in Ghana and across the continent. And so with this background, the institution realized that in our sub-region, the ECOWAS sub-region, there seemed to be some reversal of the gains we have made in terms of building democracy. So you realize that in the past decade or so, we've witnessed some unconstitutional changes in government, some coup d'etats across the sub-region, and very often we sit back and want to see what our governments and the president will do. So the whole concept of WADIMOS, which is the West Africa Democracy Solidarity Network, in short, is to create a network of civil society organizations across the sub-region. So institutions like CDD across the sub-region. In Ghana, I know Media Foundation for West Africa, IDEC, WAXI are all part of the network WADIMOS. And so we have the same thing in all the countries in the sub-region. Now, the secretariat is based in Accra and is hosted here. And so I work with the WADIMOS secretariat and CDD combined. So WADIMOS is basically trying to do what, to simplify it, what CDD does in Ghana, we are trying to do it across the sub-region in a very simplified view. but we want to do it whilst teaming up with other CSOs and civil society organizations, pro-democracy actors, activists across the sub-region, so that when there's an issue in any country, just last week we held a Francophone conference, a conference focused on the Francophone countries and the political situation there to understand what the triggers are, because we noticed that just 2 weeks ago there was a coup in Niger. We already have 3 Francophone countries. So it seems to be a problem within the Francophone zone. So we held a conference, brought together stakeholders, ECOWAS, everyone that matters, to try to see how we can review the strategies towards, addressing the issues and the concerns that they may have. But on our own as a secretariat, we are also looking at using different strategies to reaching out to the people of ECOWAS. And one of the strategies that we are implementing is the democratives. So we are using creatives to promote democracy. And this is a concept that, so I work as a comms officer for Wadimos. And so I'm leading that bit of it. That's why, I work with him sometimes on this concept. So we are developing the strategy and how we think we can collaborate, and we are meeting a lot of creatives and seeking their views on what kind of sponsorship, what kind of partnerships can we do this. Yeah, but with the democratic concept, what we want to do is that if you have your work, so we have thematic areas. Let me come from there. We have thematic areas and priority areas. So we have peace and security, we have democracy and good governance, shrinking civic spaces, human rights defenders. There are 5 priority areas that we, and then elections. So you can pick any of the thematic areas and build your craft around it. If it's a song, you can do something around it. If it's poetry, if it's a play. Because I remember I met some creatives some weeks ago, and some of them were creative directors. I don't know if you know Ni Amos. So, we try to, we are trying to harness that opportunity, that space. And because a lot of people like to listen to arts, like to follow the arts. So music, you get a lot of the youth, because if you realize, anytime there's a coup announced in any country, a lot of the people who how you can influence their way of thinking, the appreciation of issues using the arts. And that's what we want to do with the democratic initiative. And to ensure that's the concept. Like I said, we are building the strategy. Also, so we have a fund called the Democracy Support Fund. It was rolled out in June. The fund operates in 2 ways. So we have one that runs all year round, but that's more for institutions that sort of react anytime there's something urgent. So a coup in Niger, CSO there can quickly apply for funding to aid their work. Media organization, there's a coup, they need funding to operate. So that kind of urgent, funds or support, it runs all year round. Then we have one that runs every 6 months. So we started in June. The next one will be open around January. And that's open to everyone, including the creatives, But the only caveat is that you should be doing something related to our thematic areas or priority areas. So if it's a film you are bringing up, you have some concept, maybe 2, 3, very nice spoken word, something that we can share around. And it's all on the concept of elections, good governance. It may qualify once it meets all of the criteria. And you can visit the website, wadimosnetwork.org, for more information on this fund I'm talking about. And so for now, as a startup, that is how we are supporting creative. So if your work falls within that, the democracy field, anything, you can apply to a step further, such that even when we have programs and we want, say, some concepts developed around certain thematic areas for our conference, for instance, the Francophone conference we did last week, if we want to develop some, artistic, to form that kind of network of creatives that we can pitch the idea to you, you give us some product, and then we'll promote it together. And so, in short, I hope you are short. In short, that's the Democratives idea. That's all what the MOS does, and that's how we are linked to CDD.
Thank you, Jonah.
I'm happy to answer any questions or clarifications later.
Thank you so much, Jonah.
You're welcome.
And so one of the things that AWO did last year was at Wadimos launch, right? We created a piece. The idea really was about voice, and a voice beginning from within with a story. And so we created a dance duet, which was at the Kempinski last year. So it's something that we really wanted to work alongside Wadimos to develop. And what we're curious about is what resources and how might artists be further empowered or resourced to create deeper level work and work that really influences change. And so people having the chance to write music about the areas that Jonah is describing. So we can write music. We had amazing people, Miriam Makeba, Bob Marley, Fela Kuti, writing amazing music about issues. And arts to teach, to heal, to inspire, to empower. So there's a combination that we're really exploring about. And my question is really I think I would love to start with some of the creatives in the space, is what do you want to influence with your art? What would you most like to influence through your creativity? And that's open to the floor.
Sorry.
So for me, I've come to accept.
I think, sorry to interject, I think just to support the audience, if we say our name again and what...
Honor again.
Yeah.
Can
just
somebody put the names on auto-repeat?
What your kind of main form is.
My main form, I'm absolutely formless. I'm a thinker, and I fit into all spaces. I've come to accept that my purpose here on earth is to encourage people to speak up. Democracy is quite new here in Africa. I think that the level we've gotten to for most citizens is thinking that the only role they have to play is to show up every 4 years to vote. And I say 3 things, especially in Ghana. Number 1, there's so much that happens in 4 years. People lose their lives, people lose their livelihoods. The second thing is, the politicians can always rig elections. And there's a whole saying that it's not about who shows up, count. So if you think your only role is to show up to vote in 4 years, if somebody does something to the ballot box, then it means that your role is gone. The third thing, and that's still working with just Ghana, is we've got just 2 parties. So really all we're doing is swinging from one to the next. We keep going from the devil to the deep blue sea, and the devil to the deep blue sea. So that's really not what we're supposed to do. For me, I believe it starts from speaking up. And I'll use the Cecilia Dapa case as an example. The story, and once again, I think last year, the police, somebody walks into a police station and says that she's lost over $1 million in the house. And the police, after going through all their processes, made sure that the case landed in court. The Attorney General can't say he wasn't aware. But when the story broke on social media, most especially, so I think it was Friday, almost 24 hours later, there were over 10,000 tweets. And 2 hours later, she had to resign. When we speak up, especially with one voice, that as powerful as we might think that the politicians are, that they always have to kowtow. And so what that means is a silence anything that's going wrong in Africa. It's because people don't understand that they need to talk. And I always give another example as well. I always say the people who showed up at number 10 in the UK and said we're going to stand here until Boris Johnson resigns. What they were saying was, if you are prime minister, if you are a leader, we allow. And for me, I always say it's a tug of war. Every inch that we cede, these politicians step into it. And before the session started, we're having a conversation on the side. And like you talk to almost everybody, and everybody will tell you how things are so terrible. Like when you're talking, I wanted to ask you a question. And for me, I can really put people on the spot. I don't want to put you on the spot. But I think we're always dealing with the symptoms. Like you can't tell me we didn't see the coups coming. Everybody knows why coups happen. And so you should be able to tell before a coup happens. And so when a coup happens and you actually step into the space to do an investigation, I think you're too late. I always say to people, if you hate coup, what you need to hate is the things that make coup happen. And when you see those things happen, that's when you act. If you go there after the coups have happened, it's too late. And so I think, for me, I want to make it comfortable for people to talk. I want to, by the time I leave this earth, to have been one of the people to have enabled the fact that when somebody speaks up about people in leadership, because once again, we have to understand that these people come and campaign for our support. When somebody campaigns for our support and we put him or her in office, that when we talk, we cannot be bad people, irrespective of what we say, including the insult. And for me, I say it's Captain Smart, Trini Jonas. I say, yes, you can insult. And I always say, the problem is never those who talk, it's those who don't talk. And so if people get angry and want to even insult, I think they have a place at the table. And people should be able to say whatever they want to say. And if you're a leader and you're resourced by the people, then you should be able to stomach it. And it should not be a bad thing for people to speak up. And like I'm saying, I'm formless, and so I'm doing this in different ways, including my own private spaces where I speak up. Every government that comes to power hates me, and I don't care. When they go out of power, they become my friends.
Thank you, Hajiman. Powerful. Yeah. Feel free to applaud. So creating, enabling, creating spaces, empowering people to speak up. Yeah. You've got a mic, Irabna. Did you pick it because you were ready to roll? How are you?
Maybe
how would
I'm
you?
just saying amen.
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 Amen. Yeah.
Because I agree with everything he said.
Okay.
And while Jonas was speaking, I probably for the first time in my life Googled democracy. And it's a Greek word that means rule and people. So it's rule by the people. And I think sometimes words become so cliche that the meaning is lost. And we forget why we even have a democracy. Because I wonder if what we have is worth protecting. I don't think it's worth it. Anyways. Yeah, I honestly don't think that if this is all that democracy has to offer, if it's worth protecting. And for me, the usefulness of things is what interests me. And I think we talk about creatives and it becomes another cliche until we ask, what's the use of creativity if it doesn't solve problems, if it doesn't make lives better? And there's a story that I like to reflect on because it reminds me of why I'm in the business that I'm in. A couple of months ago, a young man less than 25 lost his son, who is about 4 years old. And for me, the reason is that the government failed us. So this young man had to send the child to his mother who lives in the village. His tummy upset. And because there are no roads and no hospitals in that village, that child died. And about a year ago, I watched a movie which stayed with me, The Boy Who Harnessed the Wind. And it's a story of a boy in one of the villages here in Africa who, by virtue of the fact that he had been taught how to read, realized that he had skills in science, and he saves his entire village because he's able to build a wind turbine. And during a time of drought where people were dying, this turbine village. And I can't help but to wonder who we lost when we lost that 4-year-old. And I wonder if our leaders see it this way. It doesn't look like they do. That we use words like democracy and politics, and the real meaning gets lost. That we are here to make the lives of the people better. And I hope that these types of conversations, there's been times in the past where someone reaches out during election year and says, oh, the opposition party, they want to organize something, and they are together, and would you want a seat at the table? And my answer has always been, the thing I want to tell the opposition party is the exact same thing I want to tell the ruling party, and could they both be present? It's my hope that these conversations, we can have them here with us. I hope that one day that politicians show up in a space like this and we say to their faces, shame on you. You know, shame on you. Because we glorify a lot of things which at the end of the day, we shouldn't. So I can go on and on, but I am very passionate about Africa. I think that's, like Ajman said, the power is in the hands of the people. And I don't know if the democracy we have puts the power where it really should. What we are having would play in putting the power where it should be.
So just to close, my question is, you're a creative entrepreneur, speaker, and you're influencing now as you build your business and as you build your profile. There's a clear disappointment in the systems and the structures and in the people that are in those places. Some activity to do, regardless of who else is in the picture.
And that's a good place to start thinking from, otherwise you get frustrated. I think our politicians do what they do because they don't believe in Africa. And they don't believe that they can create a continent where wealth is abundant and we can all thrive. So they think they have to steal and hoard it for themselves. And through my work, I think there's a disease that plagues not only Africa, the perception of who an African is and the African identity. So for 10 years at Kweku Ghana, we've been doing 3 things. We've been using the business of fashion to celebrate African excellence because we want to make it normal that African and excellence exist together, because often that's not the picture that comes to the mind. We've also been using it to inspire the next generation of African entrepreneurs and to create women, because we know the role that women play when it comes to raising kids. And we've seen firsthand how our tailors who are given the benefit of education, usually because they are women. So there's a family, the choice is being made between who to educate, and the girl is, she will go and get married and she's no longer really part of the family. But we've seen how if we give this woman economic opportunity, her children, whether they are men, boys or girls, she's educating them, and we are breaking cycles of poverty. So that's what we've been trying to use the work that we to do. We are turning 10 this year, and we are going to take it a notch further. We're going to morph into an organization that is really using the business of fashion to address the issues around the African identity. It is my hope that by the time I'm dead and gone, that we've played a pivotal role in raising the consciousness, not only of the world around us, but most around the African identity. I think if you elect someone in power who actually believes in the country and its potential, that corruption, it won't even happen, because they know that if we do things right, we will create wealth for all of us. And so they will have no business playing the monkey games that we see being played. I think it's just a symptom of the disbelief in who we really are as a people.
Chief.
Thank you very much. A lot to think through and unpack here. Once again, my name is Chief Mumen, and I'm a poet and a playwright. And a little bit of almost 2 decades of active practice in the creative space. My work mostly focuses on history and heritage. So one of my most popular projects, Heritage Theatre Series, was an attempt to reenact the history of Ghana through a series of spectacular theatre productions. And now we've launched a new project called Mansa World, which is focusing on West African history, starting with the philosophy of who the artist is. I think that the artist plays a dual role in society. Artist shows people who they are, so you're a reflection of themselves or onto themselves. But most importantly, artists show people who they can be. So artists are the ones who set visions and aspirations, you know, for people to follow. And they are very much tangible examples. What is considered trendy is what is projected in the arts. It's wearing afro hair, natural afro hair, and it's branded. Everyone will start wearing afro hair because they consider it as fashionable and trendy, right? So extremely important role in certain mindsets, certain attitudes. You know, it's the most powerful tool you have for social re-engineering. So first of all, let me Jonas, right? And the name of your initiative? Democratives, right? I almost said democracy. Artists are crazy, right? Understanding the potential, you know, and beginning to nurture such an opportunity, because over the years, the art has been alienated from the attempts to foster social, political, or whatever change we have in our societies, right? And artists have kind of like been on their own, trying to do their own thing. But if the states, or when I say state actors, I'm not referring to the elected government, but people like yourself, civil society organizations, recognize the important role of this genre of our society in social re-engineering. Over time, you know, we can use it to make a positive impact. But back to the work that I do. So when I started, my work was really about history and heritage. So my plays focus on history. So there's that bit of civic education there. One of the most difficult plays I had to write was The Tale of Two Men, that was examining Ghana's independence struggle through the perspective of, you know, the ideological blocks that emerge in the CCCPP, Nkrumah, JB Dankwa, self-government, now self-government within the shortest possible time, and all of that. I think that if people do not have an important appreciation of their history themselves and not know where they are going. And I say this because history gives you the bigger picture perspective. So for example, when the coup happened in Niger, right, you know, you saw a lot of people flock into the street, right? Statement that on the surface, why are we still tied to the colonial cocktails? Why, blah, 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 the French must leave. But if you have an appreciation of history, you realize that all of this is not new. Africa again, and we come back to it. So unlike people who would rush to the social media and say, yeah, this is great, you know, get the government out, blah, 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 some of us will be a bit more tempered in our approach to and how to unpack what is happening in order to think of solutions. So first of all, I think that in my work, I try to show who we are, but for me, what is most is who we can be. And if I would nuance the work, the point that Irabana and Ajman just made, I mean, I've also gone through the phase where I used to blame politicians a lot for a lot of the problems in this world. But now I like to take a bigger picture approach, and of course the obvious response is that politicians come from us. I honestly think that there are people who go into politics with the understanding of wanting to do good and wanting to foster positive change in a society. But the more you go up the political ladder, the more compromised you become. And the more compromised you become, the more ineffective you become in delivering. Right now, I'm at a point where I'm advocating for what I call a pragmatic approach in our current system, right? The problem we have is that a lot of people enter politics without integrity. So when you enter without no integrity, it's easy for you to fall. So I always say enter with as much integrity as possible so that when it begins to chip away, you still have a reservoir. Because if you look at issues like political party financing, until there is a credible way of financing political parties, which I'm not sure of what, political parties must be funded. And where do these monies come from? They come from, what do they expect? They expect, deals and returns, right? So I'm beginning to advocate for what I call more or less like sensible corruption. I think that what we have faced now in the past couple of years is that, for example, money has lost its worth. People talk about $1 million as if it is 100 Ghana cedis, right? Politicians entering politics and they want to make $1 million. $1 million in the United States is big money. So we are beginning to lose a certain reverence for money, so much so that it is almost becoming normalized, the amount of wealth you have to accumulate. I think we have to create systems where people still feel, I don't know the word, people still feel a bit scared to steal. But now it's like corruption is being normalized. So from an artist perspective, how do you use the art, to reflect what is happening in society to their face? I don't think that we have been able to do that very much, How do we use movies, for example, to show the devastation, for example? I always say that the human being forgets. You have to keep on reminding them. So every time you go to church, it's the same message, right? So even though we continue to slip in sin, but the more the message is hammered, the more at least we are restrained sometimes. So how do we, that point of acupuncture, how do we create a society whereby the in time there are constant reminders? So for me, that's what art can do. I remember there was a film that they said was almost banned by Kobirana that was supposed to be something about. I never saw it, so I can't pronounce it. But we need fearless voices like that. As you say, we need content that speaks to our current realities. But the problem is that and such content are not exactly popular content that may get you economic value. So invariably, what we are singing about is the woman's body, is the wine and everything, because that's what people think. Sex, sex sells, right? Sex sells. Yeah. So that's the message that would invariably find its way into the artistic products that we create. You create opportunities like this, where there are opportunities to fund, productions or content that is not hinged on what is popular, then you are creating the space for a diversity of voices. And you see it a lot in foreign countries around the world. I always say that one of the biggest problems we have in our country is that we don't have patrons for the arts. In the United States, you endowment into the arts where people create without worrying about way to it. Recently, a billionaire gave $150 million endowment fund to the School of Drama in Yale. Now they're running all their courses for free, essentially, for students that they admit, under some particular criteria. So we have to create a society where that there is a space to fund art that is not hinged on commercial success. Because if we do not create those spaces, then the artists would vacate their own responsibilities to think of just a few fanatics who will continue to do what they do regardless of whether they make sustenance or not. But in a nutshell, for me, one of the major things I want to achieve with my work, coming down to identity, is to retain that flicker of hope. No matter how bad the system is, we cannot it is not worth even living at all. So yes, this Africa is corrupt, our development is hinged, but I still think that there's hope for the continent. And I think that by creating productions that empower, that edifies, that asserts our identities on the global stage, we can continue to hold the fort until that revolution comes. But I think that revolution will not be swift. It has to be incremental. And so I'm advocating that let's eradicate, let's reduce corruption until it is eradicated. So let's adopt pragmatic approaches to solving our problems in such a way that eventually we can become the kinds of nations that we envision to be. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. So a common practice within our process is also always about refocusing. So I invite everybody to stand up in their chair. Take a big stretch, reach your arms up to the ceiling. Stick your hips forward. If that works for your body, do what works for your body in terms of getting a good stretch in, and then gently fold forwards. Even if it's your chin going on your chest, but if you can go all the way down, you go all the way down to the ground. Open out your spine, feel free. And these movements are for your body, so do what feels good for your body. Do your version of it. Then tuck your tailbone under. Imagine you're a cat or a doggy and your tailbone is going underneath, and roll back up. Take a big breath in. And breathe out. The next breath, breathe in all that you heard, all the wisdom. And breathe out all the things that wouldn't help and support being in the body. Any toxicity, any negativity, breathe it out. Breathe in all the love in the community. Breathe out all the things that inhibit us to grow and connect with each other. Breathe in openness, connection, anything that opens and expands. Breathe out anything that closes down. Ground your feet into the earth, drop your shoulders, roll the shoulders backwards. Roll one at a time. Roll it back. Good. And then choose another seat somewhere across the circle. Make sure you grab your water. I've left mine and sit in a different place. Great job. And if somebody's sitting on, there you go. Good stuff. No. Then swap with somebody. Swap with somebody. Yeah. Everyone find a different seat. Great job. So the conversation we're having was that your seat? Okay. The conversation we're having is about the agency an artist has to use their work to make a difference, to influence, to impact. And what I really heard in a theme was this thing about sustaining. Chief, when you were speaking, I was thinking of the word resilience. So I've come to Ghana, and my journey as a facilitator, as a practitioner, as a dance artist, as a creative has been built on this concept of integrity, autonomy, authorship, creating from my own personal journey. And I arrive in Ghana and somebody tells me, so if you start that one here, you will die. So I remember the first couple of years, and I think I met you just after that period, through Arabna. I was exhausted because a lot of people came around to see what I learned to do. And then I shared, and then I did loads of different workshops and programs and performances. And then the same thing. People were like, you're working hard. The things you stick to, like either being on time or doing as you say, these are not really valuable. What would be more valuable if you maybe found ways for people to get to the UK and charge them, So there's this thing about resilience, and I've had a go at it, and I've been sick, I've been tired, and what AWO became my support network, and it became a bedrock or a foundation. Calls to you, or Ajman, or Irabna, or Itake are the ones that keep me going. As a creative in Ghana, in West Africa, what do we need to keep going? What do we need to make sure that our gifts do continue to go out there and we do keep on with hope and belief? Do you want to add something, Amadou? Yeah. So Rita K and then Amadou. Yeah.
All right. So I'm Rita K. Hi. What I do, and from my point of view, I evolved from being a creative to being a creative. That means that I evolved my craft to the benefit of my society. Okay, so coming from a design background and all that, and navigating through ad agencies, international ad agencies, it transitioned from working for the corporate to becoming an entrepreneur, right? And creating a space that speaks, breathes creativity. Now, what we do at Basecamp revolves around community and creativity. And community is the essence of what you just spoke about, okay? Creativity equals problem solving, okay? Let's simplify the words here. Creativity, in my book, and in solving, because at the root of creativity is innovation, okay? And innovative aspect of creativity should fulfill a functional as much as it fulfills an aesthetic value, okay? Now, on the community side of things, there is one thing I always say is that in Africa, we are blessed. We have the communal lifestyle, okay? It's a blessing and a curse, let's be honest. In the West, we have the individualistic lifestyle, okay? It's every man to themselves, is basically you live alone, you path alone, then you possibly build a household, marry and all that, but even the way family lifestyles are conducted, by the way, when your parents reach a certain age, you would put them in, yes, thank you, a home, okay? That's to put it mildly, a home, for a stranger to take care of them, okay? Here, we take care of each other. In the sense, even if something happens on the streets and a stranger comes to meet the circumstance, the stranger will want to get involved, want to partake in the circumstance, okay? Now, coming back to the concept of community, when I say it's a blessing and a curse, is because they are both sides of the coin, right? Because sometimes we get involved in things that are redundant or that are none of our business, or and then we spread the disease. But then other times we sow positivity into the system, okay? But you were talking about resilience and what allows us to keep striving or to keep going on this journey and walking the talk, right? It's what we offer. I believe we were all put on this earth to fulfill different purposes, okay? And I believe we all have a different gift, irrespective of where your gift originates. We all have different gifts. Some people, their gifts are as little but as important as making the next person feel good about themselves, okay? And other people, their gifts are revolve around leading a nation. But when we are in one room and we can have these conversations, that's when we actually discover the roots of the gifts that we have and how my gift can benefit my neighbor's gift, right? So when I say I evolved from from being a creative to becoming a creative leader, is I realized that, okay, I have a craft through which I can move mountains when my designs speak volume. And then I also have a skill set to design spaces, okay? Now, I've designed multiple spaces over the years, and today we have a space that welcomes people irrespective of industry or irrespective of title or status, okay? So in our space, we have lawyers that fraternize with up-and-coming freelancers. It's beautiful. It's beautiful. Let me put it mildly. We have students that are now brushing shoulders with fully, well, let me say, established photographers. And maybe I come from a home where creativity is highly undermined. And my father is an accountant and this and that. And I'm also being, exactly, I'm also being encouraged to follow that path. But after school, I can come to the hub every other day and brush shoulders with this aspiring photographer. And I've always had a thing for photography, but I do not even know how to approach it or where to start from. So I can engage in conversations that will sow the seed for greatness or for inspiration or for even the desire to engage or have that conversation with my folks back home and actually and tell them that I do not want to be in banking, that I want to be a photographer, okay? So again, community. In community we find strength, in community we find empowerment, in community we find brotherhood and sisterhood, but also in community to an extent where we appreciate each other's gift, but we also appreciate each other's contribution to the table, okay? And through that communal space is born creativity.
Thank you.
Okay, because we engage in conversations and topics. Sauce. Something is brewing.
It's okay, I have to say something here.
Yes.
Because when I'm listening to you speaking about community, you speak it, or I hear it as if you're saying that that is what community
essentially is.
And what I see is the thing you said at the beginning, this is actually the manifestation of creative leadership held in a process, structure, facilitated, managed, nurtured, designed, created, and then held like a baby.
Yeah.
Until it functions like this.
Exactly.
Right? Because there's some communities that don't look...
No, not at all. Not at all. But we're talking about healthy communities, right?
And it takes work.
Yes. Oh.
Right?
Yes. I mean, leading a community is exhausting, it's tiring, it's demanding, it's time consuming. It's you are at the soul of the heartbeat of the communal space. And Kweku, you know that very well, you know. And it's when you feel the worst that you have to empower people, that you have to inspire people, that you have to put out that motivational quotes that will change, will add a spring to somebody's step today, you know. And you have to create opportunities to socialize, create opportunities to network, but find new ways to change the narrative every time, because as communal leaders as well, we are reinventing the wheel. There's nothing under the sun today that hasn't been done before. But we are reinventing ways we engage, ways we communicate, ways we socialize, you know, and ways we cultivate our gifts, okay? So to wrap up, what I'm trying to say is there is and also in community, you find identity. Because through that journey of discovering yourself, or brushing shoulders with your neighbor, or inquiring, or asking questions, or seeking, you find yourself, you find your true self. Okay, so in community there is wealth, wealth in different ways, and also there is problem solving, which equates creativity. That's what I'm trying to say. So to answer your question, Kweku, about resilience, right? I mean, things come at us all day long,
right?
And we said earlier that creativity, being a creative is also become very stereotypical, but we are blessed to see things from a different point of view. Let's be honest. We are blessed to see things from a different point of view as creatives, and we see magic where there is none, and we create magic and serve it, you know. So from a place where you are humbled, and a place where you are deprived, or you do not find the strength to go through the challenges that you are being faced with, that's where community brings forth the best in you. Okay? All right. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Anita. Bless you. Amadou.
Okay, I think the conversation is how do we use democratics to build a good society for all of us. And then my sister here mentioned the word disbelief, that African leaders or Ghanaian leaders don't even believe in the system. They don't believe in the country. And I can't disagree with her. I agree with her very well. And then these are my reasons. If a minister or a DC or MP builds a hospital, that he has built a hospital, and then the next 15 minutes, you see the same minister on a flight going to seek medical treatment in the UK or US. What does it tell us? What kind of hospital did you build? That you yourself, you don't want to go there. So if democrats, all of us, can come together and then advocate for a ban for government appointees. Obviously, you can't say people shouldn't travel, but government appointees, if we can stop them from traveling outside the country to seek medical care, I think that they will build a better system for all of us. Because they know that, after all, if I build any hospital, I have a way out and go and seek for medical care. But you tell me that you've built schools, but your sons are in the UK. Both good hospitals, but even headache, you travel to the UK. What kind of hospital did you build? So we should find a way of preventing these guys, especially with the government appointees, who are working for us, who claim they are working for us, from traveling. Because if he knows that, yes, if I don't build a good school, a good hospital, if I'm sick, I'll be going there. And then we tend to glorify, I think someone mentioned the word glorify, that we tend to glorify some of this thievery. $1 million has now become something like amazing. I think that's my...
Yeah, Amadou, thank you. I'm curious. I mean, Nana Tufo is sitting next to you, so I really would love to hear from you. But I'm curious about, that's almost like a campaign.
Yes.
Right? So
what I'm saying is that
Yeah.
those who are, let me use the word, those who are actively involved in democrative, since
Yeah.
everybody's now in democrative now.
Yeah,
Let me
you're
just
making a
now-
campaign pitch.
Those who are actively involved in democracy, if they can find a way of advocating or doing an act that can ministers or government appointees should be banned from traveling.
Yeah.
For me, I support, I endorse it.
Yeah. So I'm curious because I've been following the conversation in that when Ajuman, you spoke and you gave a couple of examples of political scenarios which have been impacted through action, and action both in social media and both people getting on their feet and going to the parliament or to the number 10, which is the house of the prime minister. Irabana talking about actually being excellent and great at what you do and influencing and making people believe that they can also be great, to the point where there's no reason to go anywhere. This is where greatness already is. Chief, talking about history and being able to understand where we've come from, what's at the root of the possibility and the excellence, and therefore then cultivating excellence going forward. Sunita, community, and that generating resilience, and that enabling us to be able to keep going despite the... And then Amadou throws out a direct and clear campaign pitch, like this thing is an issue. What can we do to impact and influence that issue? And so for me, it's like there's so much ground covered in the space. Is like, how do we work together to get from all these perspectives through to the campaign, and then that it actually that influences? And I'm really curious because it feels like Wademos is saying that you are creating a space for incubation, a space for creativity, a space for action to be built and developed. And I'm like, what's needed to get from here around the campaign into action? You know, and I'm like, if you have an answer, I'm really, you can definitely, you're holding the mic already, with what you've seen. And then, Nana, you're out there doing the work on the grassroots. I'm just wondering if you have a response to that question. So, you'll come back. Okay. All right.
I asked him what demos.
I'm more a case of it feels aspirational to be a solidarity network.
Yes.
And we're in a space of creatives, and creators are giving feedback on where they stand, what's happening, where their perspectives are, and then you pitch a campaign. Yeah. You say, let's do this.
Yes. So
I'm like,
Jonah,
what's the step?
Jonah mentioned the demos that is available for people who are in this civic space campaigning to apply and assess it. So what I would say is people in this who are actively involved in using craft to pass the information can assess it, can apply. This is my second time of participating in AWO Hub activity. My first time, my takeaway when I was coming, I saw brilliant ideas, from brilliant guys, but because of poor governance, the system is poor. My brother mentioned here, there's no fund. There's no support system for all of us. For young people in the US, you mentioned this Jay-Z, they're not better than our brothers here, but the system has supported them to grow. So what I would say is, let's see how the fund is applied, and then they can see how they can use this fund to grow their talent in the civic space, in the democratic space.
Thank you. Okay.
Yeah, my name is Nanatu Fokai. Pertaining to what's happening here is like, it's like a conversation that we need a lot. Most of us need this a lot here. So with me, personally, first and foremost is the mindset. We know there's a system, you know, and even there's a system within us as a community. because we have a system. And this system is created by we. You know, so for me, everything is the mindset first. And if we really want to achieve results, it's about the grassroots. Now there's a fund. But honestly, would the fund get to the grassroots? For me, that's the question. Would the fund get to the grassroots? Because here's the case, if there's a fund for certain people who are creative, we are all creatives. And there's a fund for certain people who are creatives. And these people that get the support, those at the grassroots who don't really get the benefit of it, then at the end of the day, we've created a different problem. You know, because they're saying that the significant problem we face in life cannot be solved at the same level of thinking we were when we created. So if we really want to solve a problem, we need to go beyond. That's the only way we could solve the problem. And this could create another problem. Because here's the case, if creatives, let's say, I want to use examples. Let's say this fund can support, let's say, 100 people. Very practical. And this 100 people are not people that they could, like, with or without, they'll definitely do what they want to do. You know? And this same fund could solve some people's problem or could empower them to change their narrative. You give those people the voices. These are the people that without a fund, they cannot do anything. Because if we do projects like stuff like workshops and all those stuff to empower people so that they could find their way out and fish. So that next year or next 4 years, maybe a politician will not say, let me give you 50 cedis and vote for me. They get it. So whether we like, it's about the grassroots.
The grassroots, and then it being sustainable for them.
Yeah.
So, Nana, tell us a bit about your roadmap, because there's work you're doing at the moment towards 2024, Paris and all that. But what I've loved is watching how you always fuse it into grassroots delivery. Tell us a bit about your roadmap and what you have planned.
It's a lot.
It's a lot.
Oh, yeah, I don't know where to okay.
And I know that all the money is not in yet.
Yeah.
So we're broadcasting globally. So I just want people to be listening to each story here and understanding that everybody is open to support and possibility of growing these ideas and making them reach.
Yeah, so basically we focus on empowering others, not only the guys, but the females also. Because you first have to study the problems on the ground, you know. And I see a lot of artists, especially, let me say specifically like hip-hop practitioners, like dancers and all those stuff, and we don't have the right support. We don't have the right mindset. We don't know what we could do with what we have, you know. So when you are able to identify the problem, we solve it. And we are trying to create a creative space for them, a safe one, that they could all get opportunities. So yeah, where they could, like, there could be opportunities for most of them to be really explore themselves. So that's one of the things we have been doing to empower this specific one, which is called dancing, breakdancing, because now it's an Olympic sport. So we are taking advantage of it and giving them the spotlight, giving dancers the spotlight to be able to compete and earn a living out of what they are doing. Because we've studied for so many years, hip-hop, dancers, like creatives, you know, we are nowhere to be, you know, when it comes to society, no respect, like so many stuff. So this is a first step that we are doing in our small community, trying to empower others, especially the young ones, because for we have done our part.
Tell us specifically, what have we got planned? What can we come and see? What can we watch? What can we be excited about?
Yep, so I think I would like to invite the audience, those watching now and listening now. We have a concept coming on September from 14 to 16. And we are doing community engagement where we're going to Jamestown and Labadi to empower them. This year, we didn't really take a specific social issue, but we thought about, our focus was on youth mobilization and development, which is a broader topic. But last year, we did something on gender-based violence. We did something on sexual exploitation, abuse, and harassment. So this year, our goal is to help, like, the youth. You know, it's the mindset first. Because somebody will tell how do you define someone as a professional? To define someone as a professional is only when he's making money out of. And for me, I don't see it that way. So that's one of the things we are doing this year. In November, we'll be doing our international event, and we are trying to bring other creatives from other countries, even from Niger now, Burkina Faso, and all this stuff. And the same way, we are trying to promote democrative. We call it hip-hop democratives.
Powerful, yes.
So, Kweku, I think just off the back of his contribution, for me, I'd like to see the Wademo's problem statement. It was like Sunita said, and I remember my very first creative director telling me that creativity is all about solving problems. And if you don't state the problem right, then you end up not solving what you want to solve. So I'd like to see two things, and not in the session, but what your problem statement is. And even more importantly, and that's what he alluded to, is your KPIs. What are you measuring? Because that's how you get things wrong. If you have your KPIs set right, I think that will tell you who you're supposed to support and which intervention you're supposed to support. And all throughout that, you know the measurables that you're dealing with. Because if you don't do that, you can just spend so much money, and we've seen it over and over and again, and there wouldn't be any effect really. Because people will come in for the money and use it for stuff that won't fulfill what it is you're looking to do.
Thank you. So if you look at the Demos Fund, it's just a component of the overall activity that we are doing this year. It's just a portion of it. And then we have a criteria for assessing the fund. We have eligibility criteria that you must meet before you assess the fund. Then there is a committee, a selection committee that goes through all the applications to see whether you have record in whatever you said you want to do. You've done some before. You have the capacity to implement whatever you said you want to do. Yes, so these are some of the basic criteria that one must meet before you can apply for the fund. It doesn't end there. We have what we call a steering committee. So after the selection committee has done the screening, they do what we call recommendation. Okay, we recommend this person or this organization to assess the fund. Now the selection committee will set out what we call the evaluation. They have a funnel say. By then, they've done their background checks to even know that, yes, Mr. A or Mr. B has the capacity to implement the project. So it is not just like we are rolling anybody at all into the fund. It's passed through certain various stages, various processes before you have access to the fund.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Great. I'm going to call a relative pause or a shift, a slight shift as we come towards the close of this iteration of the conversation, because we are just beginning, right? And Ajuman and I were having a conversation about what would be ideal to emerge out of such a conversation. And I'm aware that Donna Farrell, my teacher, one of my traditional music teachers, one of my traditional, I would say, wisdom teachers hasn't spoken. So that's something I'm really conscious of. But that's not to say that you can't at this point. But what I was going to request is that we take a moment just to reflect for a moment. There's some Post-it notes over here. Nana, if you could grab it for us, there's Post-it notes and pens. And I would love just to take a moment, just a couple of minutes, just to, the colored ones, colored Post-it notes. Yeah, the colored little squares of paper. Yeah. So, and some pens. And just take a moment just to jot down any reflections, thoughts, or impulses, things that you feel like from this conversation you would want to take action, you would want to take away, you want to do. For example, Amadou, he's suggesting deeper level KPIs. There might be something you want to do around that. Chief, you were having a conversation about being more educated about identity and knowing where you come from and education and history. Sunita was talking about community. So anything that's come up for you during this conversation, please just take a post-it and a pad and just make a few notes. And for me, I'm thinking more about either ideas that have been sparked, impulses that are being triggered, questions you have that you would love to get answered, more conversations, like what is triggered for you from this conversation? Just take a moment to record. And Don, I request you do yours quickly so that you can then give us a little bit of your beautiful sound. So, but I don't want you to not engage. So please grab a flip chart, grab a pen, post-it, grab a pen, and just take a moment there. And then maybe our creative team can give us a little bit of light music, and then Don will take over. Thank you so much. Different people will read.
Hello.
Yeah, yo. Okay, good. Great. So, streaming team, let me know when you're set up. Yeah, it's the journey of the day. Okay, so we're going to really just wrap up and summarize by sharing some of the journey of today. And just take a chance to have a look at our graffiti wall. And in the morning, we just placed this up just to allow people a chance to just engage with some of the themes that we were looking at. I put a few provocations up. I put democracy is. Someone give me a few feedbacks. What did people write? Democracy is?
Not for Africa.
Wow.
That's there.
Yeah. Someone wrote not for Africa.
And
Democracy is?
Being human.
Being human. Democracy is?
Power, play, fear.
Power, play, and fear. Any more? Democracy is?
Room for freedom of expression.
Okay. And then we went down, I put a provocation here or a statement. Art can change the world. Discuss. discuss. Sunita, what do you see? Donna Farrow, please come forward. Yeah.
I think poverty, poor person selling good, rich people think
It's small or something.
Smell.
they smell.
Yeah, yeah. And these came from an
Okay.
activity we did this morning, which was using theatre techniques to explore changes and transformation that people wish for West Africa. So there was an image where there was a woman reaching up to somebody, a man who seemed more affluent and potentially was in the political space. And so as they were doing the tableau or the freeze frame, the rest of the group were guessing what the image
What it
was.
looks like.
And so art was interacting with the conversation of transformation. Yeah. And then at the bottom, West Africa needs mental health. Yeah.
Truth.
So truth.
Not sure.
Mental health.
Truth and hearts and minds, yeah. So this is a tool that sometimes we use. You can just put up a space where people can engage with ideas and thoughts. What's it say on the act? Can you read that?
Who gets to deliver?
Cool, and I hope the live streaming team are doing close-ups and capturing what's going on on the chat while they're eating bananas and chilling. Team, you've worked hard, but we're closing very soon. Yeah. What do you call it? The audience behind the scenes of what the streaming team are doing. So I would love to hear, because we haven't heard from Don, what you wrote on your post-it note, Don, in terms of what reflections you were having from being part of this discussion. Yeah, discover, look for your own. Yeah, tell me.
Yeah, freedom of expression, and also speaking out there.
How would you want to engage with that as an artist?
Okay, basically my art speaks more of freedom, and it must speak for itself. It depends how you handle it, you know. Yeah, so you know, as an African and playing instruments from other countries from Africa brings that unity. So because they see me or anyone who is doing that as their own, so sometimes they will call my brother and all those stuffs. Yeah, so I think art gives us freedom and also unite. So as an African, if we try like playing all these roles and weaving them together, we'll become one. More than, oh, I'm from Ghana, so I'll play only the role that's concerned about Ghana, or I am from Cote d'Ivoire, so I'll do this from. It divides, because we are one before the slave master came in and divide us. Okay, and when we migration, we are from somewhere and we land somewhere. So when you trace it, you know, we pass through points that we have to be part of that, but we continue the journey. So we leave that, because as a Ghanaian, when I research about migration, we migrate through Mali, Senegal, you know, and through Nigeria, Togo. Yeah, so me involving in instrument making, I try to make things that connect with all these roots, because when you are migrating and you settle somewhere, that means you leave something and you take out something. You know, some of us, we belong to certain a culture that we don't know until you fight and find it, and your connection with that thing will become more like flexible. So you feel like, no, I'm part of this. Maybe you have the blood in you, but because of migration, you move out from that zone. So you might think, oh, this is not for me. Okay, so I try to do everything, every bit of something that I find interesting in Africa that will unite us. And also, many people might not get access to it because it is far from them. But as a creative, when I see it from far, I know how to go about it and bring it close to people. Yeah, so my art talks more of unification and also freedom of expression.
Thank you.
I'll be remiss if I didn't go after Don, because he's spoken to something that's very core of what I do. For example, someone asks about, why are you a Ghanaian? You're doing a story about Mansa Musa, who is a Malian. I'm like, if you understand our history as Africans, you understand that I have every right to do that story, right? Because we migrated, especially as a northerner from northern Ghana, we migrated from the Sahels. If you look at a typical Akan court, for example, and this is another example, you see them with their umbrellas, you see the way they sit, and the king's court, they will sit, in a file around him. That's exactly how, the ancient kings of Ghana and Mali used to. So Mansa Musa or the Mansas will be on their thrones. They will have people playing the horns. They used to have the umbrellas, and they had the whole royal court. So we are all a mixture of different ethnicities over time. We've picked up a lot of things, and sometimes we hold on too much to our current identities, thinking that that is sacrosanct. And I tell people, for example, issues like inter-ethnic marriages like that, I tell them, look, what we hold sacrosanct today as our ethnic groups, maybe in another 200 years, 300 years, 500 years would have evolved into something, right? I mean, the Ashanti, for example, are about 400 to 500 years old. But it doesn't mean that that is their only existence in this world. Their antecedents go way back into thousands of years. So I just wanted to highlight that very important point that my good brother Don made me very happy. And I'm sure I should use the opportunity to read mine, right? Since we're all doing. Taking it. So I worry about community. I was like, beyond individual projects, Wadimos should consider bringing a group of artists together to execute flagship projects. I just thought of all the exciting brains here. And the idea of engagement. And discussions like these are important to remind artists of their civic responsibility. Should be extended to more. I'm just imagining a potential of having the likes of the Sarkodis and the Stoneboys, the cultural leaders, because sometimes these conversations must be extended to them because they really hold the most influence. So how do we get to the cultural leaders? And I made a similar point at the Institute of African Studies where they do a lot of research on African culture, African history, African identity, but it remains in the ivory tower. But sometimes the artists don't know, so they just chase so much commercial success that they lose or forget their other important responsibilities. So how can we begin to effect little change? In the 21st century, an artist should not be singing about Tuntum Broni. Equating the idea of a beautiful black person to whiteness, So how do we even decolonize in the kind of language we put out there? That can only happen if we draw their attention to it. So some of these things are important to engage, because sometimes the tendency is that we all go around you see the same kinds of people around the same circles all the time. But those who really hold the most power, they are a bit, separated from these core discussions. And I'd like to see opportunities like this where they are also engaged.
Thank you so much, Chief Moomin. Yeah, and so we're wrapping. Yeah, and tell me, we know. So we're wrapping now in the next 10. So I want the feedbacks to be quite succinct. So to just state what it is and then pass the mic.
All right. So I think I wrote quite a bit here, but I'll just pick voice, because I was looking at synergy. So while sitting down, I was like, okay, why are we all here? I mean, what's the common ground that brings each and every one of us here? I think on Sunday, somebody actually spoke on intention, somebody I really deeply respect. And he actually tied it to why an organization of our old could still be so successful. So I just, let me just go there and try to see, like, we together, what's the intention, what's the synergy, what drives us? And that could actually bring the fruition of what we all aiming to actually look at here. So I'll just pick something. And he said something, he said intention and commitment to the intention drives your vision. Intention and the commitment to that intention, that's what drives the vision. And we as creative people here, I mean, there's something that ties us together, and that is voice. That's voice. An acronym which I picked from voice is the vision, an opportunity. This is like a platform that gives us that opportunity to actually do what we intend to do. The I, of course, is the intention. The C, creativity, which drives, I mean, you spoke about creativity tied to wealth. And I think E has to do with empathy, because the reason I'm here, though, I mean, there's a lot of things at the background of what you do, but I actually like you as a person. And I mean, that's actually tied to empathy, how you could actually relate with something deep inside of me. So if we could all tie that down and like a synergy and run with that, I feel what we actually starting here would go beyond I mean, years, that we'll really see we would actually be able to speak to power. Not the way in Africa here where only when they want to get to power then they call us to release something. So that's just what I wanted to say. Thank you very much.
Great. So please, down to sentences, please. 3 or 4 sentences to close us out. Sunita.
All right.
Manifesto here forming.
Oh, no. So I wrote, a lot of my notes revolved around questions I asked myself due to the conversation we had. So my first question was, what do creative communities look like? Okay, and I'm not going to answer those questions for you. I'm sowing the seed. Yeah. What do creative communities look like? If we feel community and creativity could be the answer to the problem, so what do they look like? Can good governance stem from a sense of community? That's another question I want to put out there. If we find resilience, we find love, and we find fraternity in community, can good governance stem from community? What does creative impact look like? That's very key. Okay, we are talking about the fund is for impact, but what does creative impact look like? Okay, because yes, the democratives, we are working. And last but, one before last was who should the fund be attributed to? Okay, I think that was key. I think I can't remember who touched on it, but that was key, and the criteria as well that forms the decision making as to who the fund should be attributed to and how that translates into impact. Okay, direct impact or long-term impact. And then last question, more a thought that I raised earlier was creativity equals problem solving. I'm a very big preacher when it comes to creativity equals problem solving, because at the root of every problem is a creative spark. Okay, and for example, everything you've come in contact with today or the day before has been created by somebody. This table, this chair, this room, this building, you know, and this presentation. Okay, so and serves a functional and aesthetic purpose. So what do we think about creativity being at the root of the problems we encounter? Thank you.
Thank you, Sunita. All right.
Okay, so you said just about 2 sentences or something. Okay, I wrote a lot. And you also didn't say we're going to read it out, so I wrote a lot of bad things. I'm kidding. 2 things I want to read out, or I remember writing is, the first thing is action and not words. I think we're so great at talking and they're not so great at acting. So the first thing I want to say is action but not words. And also Africa must win. You'd have access to everything else I wrote.
Thank you so much. Powerful. Is that everybody? Awesome. Oh, Nana.
Okay. I think for me, I just got one word, and that was longevity perspective. For me, I think everything is our sustainability. If the fund could support, or the fund should have a long-term perspective, because when you start something, we cannot finish at the end. It comes back to square one. So for me, just basic.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Nana. All right, we're making our way back over to the circle. I think this is a time for we are closing. So somebody alert our team of very creative caterers And let's have a close out with a quick celebration. And before Chief goes, he has to have cake because he's a sweet man, so he should take sweets. Sweetness. Cool. Let's close in the circle. I think we're a bit of a cuter group now as we wrap up. Temi, come and enjoy some cake. Moody's, please enter the space. We are so blessed with our family. It's full of talent, full of creativity, full of entrepreneurs. And Ruby Moody, our sister, daughter, inspiring entrepreneur that she is, has donated one of her wonderful creations, her cake. So let's sing happy birthday to AWO as the wonderful Moody's team enter the space. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear AWO. Happy birthday to you. Hip hip. Hooray! Hip hip hip. Hooray! Hip 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 hip. Hooray! Aha! Let's have a look. Let's have a look. Wow, Moody's never disappoints. Beautiful. Okay. This is my favorite Moody's carrot cake.
It's hairball cake.
So carrot cake is my favorite Moody's cake. And Moody's did my wedding cake. They did our first birthday, second birthday. I mean, Moody's does food today. So thank you for Moody's for providing our celebratory cake. And because you talked about a manifesto, we have a lot of thoughts, stories up there that we can use as a foundation. And it's always about what happens next, right? So in terms of Wademos, in terms of AWO, in terms of all the connected community of creatives, how do we want to make sure that this doesn't end up as a flip chart in Kweku's garage for my wife to get angry with me about?
Sticky notes.
Yes. Exactly. So what do we do? How do we take it forward? What's the next step? Amadou, from your perspective, I don't know, because you already have a thought about it.
We'll march to Wademos every Monday. I'm kidding. I think he can go first.
I think we have spoken about this already. Maybe potential people who wants to go into this space should look for the Demos Fund to not only this. We live in a society where there are donor support for other activities going on. Oh, there are, yes, there's. We need to explore. There are other sorts of funding somewhere. So what I would say is, apart from the Demos Fund, we need to explore and see other sorts of funding to support our brains, to support our talent going forward. Yeah. To the artwork.
Just to say, as migrators, right? Because I'm also, I've been migrating through Ghana and other West African countries. One of my major disappointments back to Ghana was that to be aware of how poor referencing is in this country. Anything you look for, anything you need, is somebody who knows somebody who knows somebody. But you know, we are now building directories, and is really pushing in that regard. But back in the day, and with the help of social media as well, you know, we now have online directories of, you know, when you're looking for an event, you go to this event page and so on and so forth. But back in the day, all we had was the yellow pages. And again, most of the numbers, when you dial, they are disconnected. So earlier, find opportunities and other funds to tap into, okay? I've experienced, I've gone through so many journeys where we've applied for grants and we never got. That's a story for another day. But where do we find those opportunities? That is key. Form of directory or reference that starts maybe within the small circle and that evolves to local channels or community channels or national channels. That would be great. Okay, thank you. As a resource, yes. Because the acquisition is a different topic, but even locating the resource is a challenge. Cheers.
Let me contribute small. Yes, myself, I don't even trust our system. Yes, I must be frank with you. But then, there are some funding opportunities that are not locally engineered. You understand? So you go through it. They open the call. Yes. Yes. So that's what I'm referring to, not our system. I don't trust our system. For that one, you need to know someone who knows somebody. The chain is very long.
What happens next? Kweku, like we said when we were planning this, that we put the point here into a manifesto that goes to Wadimos, and we have to ensure we're following up to ensure action. Probably the last thing I'd say, and Chief Movement mentioned that. So when you're talking about your last points before Senator came in, I think it's important for you to do some headhunting, for want of a better phrase. Because for every project, you need the people who can amplify. And that's how you get results. And so Chief Movement, for example, talked about some of, let's say, our flagship creatives, that you need to get some of them on board just for, even if you're not going to have them do anything, that they can amplify the project. And then you look for your impact players, the people who would, once you're doing those two things, that they should go a long way. Next year is election year. So I think it's important that this conversation has started now, and especially be very willing to engage. I actually had some conversations with some of them. And then knowing that next year is 2024, that you're really interested in the whole democratives thing. And so I think then that's another way you look to really push it.
Great.
Like I said, we're willing to march here every month. You're acting.
That's very interesting.
Thank you, Ajuman. So awesome. So in order to close, I think we're committed to in a way that we can share with Wadima, so I will do that. I would like us just to close with your name and then or 3 words to close out your session. So I'm going to give you a demonstration. So I'm Kweku. My 3 words are speak up now.
Pharaoh.
1, 2, or 3 words.
I don't have any 1, 2, 3 words.
That's more than 1, 2, or 3.
Okay, 1.
So I'm Tammy. Commitment to intention.
I'm Itake. I think
I'm Nanat Fokai. I think my word is positive.
2 words or 3? Do what you preach.
Let's see. I like smiles. Jonah, progress.
Ajuman, Africa must win.
What a way to end. Clap for yourselves, everybody. Blessings. This is how AWO celebrates conversation, community, connection, creativity, and the opportunity to grow together. Welcome.